I thought it would be all too easy to just waltz in here and claim this fort. And it is!
Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here with another reveal about Shadow of War, this time concerning the endgame. As you almost certainly know by now, your goal in Shadow of War is to take over Mordor, conquering fortresses and making them your own in order to combat the forces of the Dark Lord Sauron. But what happens when you've done that? What happens when the final mission is over and all the forces of Mordor are under your heel? Well, Sauron tries to take it back, of course. There's a previously unannounced endgame mode called the Shadow Wars, which you're looking at right now. In the Shadow Wars, Sauron's forces mount assaults against your fortresses to try and take them back, and it's your job to defend them. Here you can see Talion's army preparing to defend the region of Saragost.
Swine! That fort doesn't belong to you! But this eye gouger has your name all over it!
In gameplay terms, it basically means getting to explore the flip side of the coin when it comes to fortress assaults, setting up your army, defending your capture points, and trying to kill the waves of advancing enemies, enemy war chiefs and all, before the fortress falls.
Whoa! They're quivering in fear, boys! And soon this fort will be ours!
It's a pretty frenetic assault. While the Dark Lord's forces are separated out into waves, they won't wait patiently for you to fend off one wave before starting the next one. They just pile in, meaning you can be thoroughly overrun if you're not careful. If you successfully defend the fortress, congratulations, it's yours to keep and you can carry on customizing and upgrading it as normal. If you fail, however, let's just say for the sake of argument you get killed in a surprisingly long and brutal sequence involving a crossbow, things get rather interesting.
I'm going to miss splattering your blood all over the place, but now that I'm a war chief, I'm going to make this place run red with this stuff!
For one thing, the fortress and region are both lost. The orc that killed you, in this case Zuka Weapon Master, becomes the overlord of the fortress. He also earns himself a shiny new title out of the bargain, becoming Zuka the Conqueror. Obviously, having this fortress back under the control of the Dark Lord won't do, so you'll need to retake it and claim Zuka's head in order to progress. More pressingly, however, the overlord of the fortress you just lost has been captured by the enemy, and you'll need to mount a rescue mission in order to get him back.
Slice his cheeks so red and slim. Who do you think you are, holding my boy's prisoner? I'll have your head!
Once you've rescued the warlord, assuming you don't leave him to die as punishment for getting captured in the first place, you can take the fortress back using the methods that should be fairly familiar to you by this point in the game.
I've been pining away in here thinking, when will the pink skin come and dance with me? Let's dance!
Taking the fortress back allows you to reinstate the warlord and, assuming no other regions have fallen, allows the Shadow Wars to progress to the next stage. All in all, I think it's pretty interesting, and it's a clear sign Monolith is determined to get the endgame right in Shadow of War. Once you'd finished the final mission in Shadow of Mordor, that was kind of it. You could run around in the open world, sure, but in terms of actual concrete things to do, it was all a bit thin on the ground. In Shadow of War, the open world is still on offer, but sticking in a wave-based challenge mode is likely to add at least a few hours of gameplay to those who want to progress beyond the story. It's also quite refreshing to see what it's like to defend against a fortress assault rather than leading one. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play one of these missions during my visit to Monolith, but from where I sat, it looked quite challenging. While in a fortress assault, you're free to attack the points in any way you choose and basically just focus on one at a time, defending a fortress in the Shadow Wars requires you to be aware of, and across, all the points at once, which requires a lot of deft juggling in the heat of battle. Especially at the more advanced stages, this footage is taken from stage 6 by the way, I think it's going to be quite tricky to hold on to some of these fortresses, so you can probably expect to mount at least one rescue mission during your time with it. It's worth noting, however, that while the Shadow Wars constitute a good chunk of Shadow of War's endgame, they're not endless. Instead, they're separated into a series of stages, with the strength of your enemies and the number of regions under attack increasing with each stage. Once you've completed the Shadow Wars, you get to see the game's true ending, which ties the events of Shadow of War directly into Lord of the Rings. How exactly? Well, Michael De Platte, creative vice president at Monolith, said he basically sees Talion's actions in Mordor as buying time for the Fellowship of the Ring, distracting Sauron and his forces while Frodo and the others prepare to destroy the One Ring in the fires of Mount Doom. How exactly that will manifest itself is unclear at this point, though it does throw up some interesting questions. If Shadow of War leads directly into Lord of the Rings, and we know how the events of that trilogy play out, is this the end of Talion's journey? Where do the Shadow of games go from here? Have we seen the last one? Thoughts on the Shadow Wars in the comments below, please. There are plenty more videos on Shadow of War for you to watch on the channel, including one on microtransactions. Those should be floating about on screen now. Do subscribe to Eurogamer for plenty more on Shadow of War and lots of other stuff. Thank you for watching, and have a lovely day.